Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Patriots Real Time Podcast. I am your host, Theodis, now joined alongside Austin Ray, and today we have a very special guest joining us for the second time, 98.5, the Sports Hub's Alex Barth. And today we will be talking about the disappointing 35-31 loss to the Buffalo Bills. But before we do that, Alex, Austin, how you guys doing today?
Doing good. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, I'm doing great as well.
Yeah. So this should be a fun podcast. The game for the first half was pretty fun, up 24-7. They blew a 21-0 lead, and I think I saw a next gen stat that said they're like 140 something, or 140 something and one when having a 21-point lead. So not great there. Definitely not great there. You know, you had the lead. It looked like it was going to be a blowout. And then you can't even get the job done. The defense let up 5 straight touchdowns. And then it's your first loss since September. I kind of forgot what it felt like to lose. That was a tough loss. You know, you lose, 13 times last year, 26 times over the last 2 seasons. And this one definitely hurt more than any of those ones.
Yeah, I mean, on one hand, you want the silver lining. It's nice to have a game that can disappoint you like that. I think the last time Patriots faced that letdown was probably when they won in Week 18 last year, and it cost them the number 1 overall pick. So, it's a weird game to talk about because whether you look at it for the macro, whether you look at it from the micro, what perspective you put it in, long term, okay, they went toe-to-toe with the Bills twice. They split them. If you knew that going into the season, between the 2 games, the scoring differential, they'd be -1 total. Going 1-1, you'd say it's pretty good. But the way in which they lost the game, the stakes that were at hand, it felt like they were the better team. It felt like they should win going in, but also it's kind of unfair to expect a young team, to win 11 games in a row, which is what they've been doing. And then there's the bigger picture of it, which is this is a team that, on paper, should have Super Bowl aspirations. One of the best teams in the AFC, albeit a weak AFC, and they have one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and the standards should be high for that group. How do you square that with, coming into the season, the standard, the expectation was, hey, just be around the playoff picture at the end of the year, right? So I don't think you can judge them off the preseason standard at this point because we've learned more. But I also, they are still a young team that's going to have growing pains. I think Patriots fans of a certain age, you look at an 11-2 team a certain way, and in a sense that's fair, but this isn't Tom Brady and Bill Belichick both 15 years into it at 11-2. It's a lot of young players, it's a lot of new players, it's a lot of moving pieces, so I don't think you can judge them on that scale either. So there's certainly some things to feel good about, micro, macro, big picture, and there's some things that are concerning, both in the, on a smaller scale and in the big picture.
Yeah. Oh, awesome.
No, I completely agree. I feel like this, like you said, this is sort of a win. It's got 2 faces. One, of course you're disappointed because this is a game that I feel like we've had circled for a long time now, and it's a tough one to lose, but it's okay because I feel like someone's brought up to me, if we had to play the Bills 3 times, even though we're such a good team, we're really good. The Patriots are a really good team this year, but I have a hard time thinking that this young team's going to beat the Bills 3 times in a row.
No, yeah, I kind of thought the same thing. It's like, I was like, if they win this game, I don't know if they're going to be able to beat them in the playoffs. And then now I'm like, well, now they can beat them in the playoffs. And it's kind of weird. I don't understand why my brain works like that. I don't know. The Bills have the momentum, I guess you could say, against them now, especially with the way the game went. They definitely have the momentum over them now. But obviously, that's going to change over the course of the next 3 games.
Yeah, and it's, you see the blueprint, but also which team are you getting? You watch that first half and you think, okay, it's not that ridiculous to think a team wouldn't blow a 21-point lead twice in a season. And so if they can play that first half again, if there is a 3 match, then they should win. But on the other hand, this is a Bills team that's adept at coming from behind. They've shown it now multiple times this season that no deficit really faces them. So even if they were to play in the playoffs and the Patriots were to get up, 2, 3, 4 scores, how comfortable would you be at that point? So, yeah, it's It's a tough one to judge because this Bills team is just so weird in the
Hmm.
way that they go about their business and the way they win
Yeah.
games, and then obviously just it being so weak for the Patriots.
Yeah, and there's one thing that I just cannot wrap my head around, and that's the broadcast maybe mentioned it 2 or 3 times, talking about how Vrabel had more of a second half approach to practice where he worked them hard later into practice, and then to fall apart like that in the second half of the game when you worked on that all week in practice is honestly just, for lack of a better word, crazy. Just, I don't know. Yeah, how do you work on something all week at practice and then execute that so poorly on Sunday?
Yeah, it's tough. Look, they knew it was coming. Vrabel spoke about it on Wednesday, how good the Bills were coming back. There were a lot of things that the coaches talked about during the week that they needed to be ready for that the Bills did, and the Patriots didn't look ready for. I will say, practicing the second half is
Yeah.
kind of abstract. That's not like practicing a post route, right? You
Hmm.
just go rep it 100 times, and
Yeah.
there's teams do this for the Super Bowl all the time because there's a longer halftime, and you'll hear teams kind of structure their practice, try to simulate that, but it's one of those things you can't really simulate. You just kind of have to be in it, and you
Yeah.
have to react the right way when you're in it. I think more so the idea of practicing the late game situation is to just send the message that there's a heightened focus on that there's a
Okay.
heightened emphasis on that. Obviously, the Patriots still came up short, but that you hope that hammers home the message even more. Look, the Patriots have not been a good fourth quarter team for a few weeks now. It hasn't cost them a game, but they have not done well in the fourth quarter, and particularly on offense. A few
Hmm.
Travion Henderson big runs, which you
Hmm.
can't really count on that. As good as he's been, that you can't just call the Travion Henderson 50-yard run play. You know, they haven't been as good in fourth quarters, in particular on offense, and it hasn't bit them. Mike Vrabel said earlier this year, you'd rather learn from winning than learn from losing, and I think that there's absolute truth to that, but I think a loss can also maybe hammer home that a little more, so you kind of hope focusing on it all week, failing to execute it, like that really sends the message, and we see a different Patriots team in the fourth quarter starting this week against the Ravens.
Hmm. And you talk about those fourth quarters, and the person that has been underperforming in the fourth quarter the most is Drake May. You look at the splits in the first and the fourth quarter, and they're significantly down than the second and the third quarter. The second quarter is his best quarter. I did a post on this on Instagram yesterday, so that's how I know this. But the fourth quarter stats are just, they're not MVP like. They're not good, like, really. So I don't know. Maybe this gets into the idea maybe he's not clutch. And I know, this game is not everything, because I watched the film. The receivers, they were not open. Um, and when they were, Drake was getting pressured. So maybe you can't say that this is the game to tell if he's clutch or not. But I saw him freeze up a little bit on the Mac Hollins throw. That was a bad throw. Even the Hunter Henry throw was not great. And then he's never led a game-winning drive when trailing in the NFL. Last year, he threw 2 game-losing interceptions, one in Tennessee and then one against the Rams. So I'm not saying that he can't be clutch, but he hasn't shown it to this point.
Yeah, this is part of having a young quarterback. Look,
Yeah.
is it he's not clutch now? A lot of the fourth quarter numbers are lower because they've been ahead and they're running the ball and they're trying to kill the clock too. So this was
100%. Yeah.
a unique situation. Okay, so is he not good late in games? Was it the cold? Maybe he's just not good in the cold. We don't know. We haven't seen him that much in the cold. Maybe this was the first time in his career he's faced a team twice in a season. He didn't play the full
Yeah.
divisional game any of the games last year. Jets game,
That's
played
true.
very late in the first one, left very early in the second one with that fake concussion, or when they flagged him for the concussion and he cleared quickly, said he didn't really feel concussed.
Yeah.
The Dolphins game, he didn't play the first one, did play in full in the second one. And then the Bills game, played in full in the first one, and then the second one he gets pulled after a drive that was week 18. And then this year they haven't played the Jets or the Dolphins second time. So this is a young quarterback. These questions come up, and you kind of find answers, and you go through process of elimination. So that's not to downplay the fourth quarter thing. Maybe it's that. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's a little bit of all of them. Like, we don't know. There just isn't enough of a sample size yet. But it is something now that is a question. And when they are down late in the game again, which will happen eventually, could be as soon as this week, who knows, like that thing comes up, and suddenly you start paying a little more attention because, hey, he failed in this spot last time.
Yeah.
Was that a rough game, or is it a pattern? And then if he does succeed, okay, well, what was different about this one versus the last one? Or if he does fail again, like what's in common? So that's just part of having a young quarterback, having a young team. You're going to learn all these things as you go, and you try to figure out what's real and what maybe we're looking at that might be
Yeah.
like a red herring or whatever.
Yeah. Right now, sort of what you guys have been saying, I have a hard time labeling Drake May like what his future is going to be. If he's going to be that fourth quarter clutch guy, or if he's just going to be that guy that you just see burn out towards the end of the game. But I think that with the coming games and the coming seasons also, I think that he's going to start getting more targets around him, building start to build an actual team around him, like Alex and everyone you guys have said many times. Has an extremely young team. Like he's got Kyle Williams, Travion Henderson, two guys that could be amazing one day and who have already been looking great. So I think that he's going to be building these weapons around him that'll help lead him into this clutch factor that we're talking about.
Yeah. And Austin, I asked you this question last podcast, which was how confident or what percent chance I think it was that Drake May leads a game-winning drive down in the fourth quarter. And I think you said 95%.
Yeah.
So what's your percent chance after this game?
I was a little excited before last game. So I still think he has more than a 50% chance. I think that 95 is much too high. I'm going to put it somewhere around, 55, 60%.
Yeah. Because we did see him play well against the Bills the first
Yeah.
time. Some of the throws he made to no, it was to Mac Hollins, I think, in the honey hole, right? And then obviously to Stephon Diggs when he had to stiff arm the defender. So I guess you could say he was clutch in that game. But
Yeah.
yeah. Before we get into 2 up, 2 down, one stat that we talked about last podcast: the Patriots hadn't scored over 30 points against the Bills since 2017. They did it yesterday, and they lost. So it doesn't really matter how many points you score. But that's got to be the first time they scored over 30 points in a loss in a long time.
Yeah, I don't have that exact number in front of me, but I would
Mhm.
think so. Because they've not been scoring in the last couple.
Yeah, the hardest thing for them was to score over 25 points for the last 3 years. They do it consistently now, so that's cool. All right, Alex, you want to give us your first up?
Yeah, my first up from this game, I mean, I think it's pretty basic. Travion Henderson. Like,
Mhm.
2 awesome runs. I think even on some of his smaller runs, he's still got to get better at being able to take a profit when the home run's not there. But there were, even outside of the big ones, there were a couple runs where I thought, okay, this probably should have gone for a loss or no gain. And he found 2 or 3 yards out of it. And those runs add up over the course of the game. You don't want to be in 2nd and 8. You'd rather be in 2nd and 8 than 2nd and 12. So, and that speaks to his vision and his decision making, which I think the game was a little fast for him early in the year. It feels like he's gotten much better in that regard, and then obviously it's led to some home run plays as well.
Yeah. Austin, you also had him, right?
Yeah, Trayvon Henderson, was my number one too. He had pretty much the exact same stat line from when he played Tampa Bay. He had one more yard and zero point 0.1 more yards average per run. But sort of like you just said, Alex, his sort of innovation, I don't know how to describe it, but on his second touchdown, being able to bounce out for what could have been a loss and then breaking out a 60 something yard run for a touchdown. I think that, the way he sees the field and the way he's able to change those plays and change the outcome of games right now is pretty big.
Yeah. And Alex talked about how at the beginning of the season, the game seemed too fast for him. And he talked about how the biggest jump for him was the preseason to the regular season. And we saw that he was just running into defenders, running into his own guys, I feel like, at points during the beginning of the season. And now he looks so much more comfortable in this system and in the NFL, I guess you could say. So, yeah, Travion Henderson didn't have on my up list, not because he didn't deserve to be on the up list, but I knew you guys would have him on. So, yeah. So my first up was the offensive line. So Drake May had his most time to throw in his career, I believe. It was certainly the most this season with 3.19 seconds. And then also run blocking. Travion Henderson and Ramondre Stevenson both had their best games of the season in terms of yards per carry. Travion Henderson, 10.8 yards per carry. Mostly due to the two long runs, but still, he had a few, 8-yard carries, as Evan called them on Patriots Unfiltered singles. So, and then Stevenson had 8.3 yards per carry. So I thought the offensive line did a fine job. Vidarian Lowe, I think he only allowed 2 pressures all game. So yeah, the offensive line was my first up.
Yeah, for my second, I mean, I picked Jared Wilson. You could pick anybody on the offensive line. I just think it was impressive for Wilson, you know, go back a couple weeks, the way we saw him leave the field in Cincinnati to come back and sets a great block on a pull on the first Travion Henderson touchdown run, clean sheet and coverage, didn't allow pressure. Again, I thought the offensive line as a whole played really well, but the rookie coming back from an injury, playing the way he did, I thought he deserved a little extra credit.
Yeah, I've talked about this on the last 3 podcasts, but I want to get your opinion on this. Obviously now it's kind of crazy to say, but do you think after Ben Brown's performance against the Giants, it would have been crazy to not start Jared Wilson over him?
No, I don't think so. Ben Brown's been good too. I think that
Mm-hmm.
where Wilson has the advantage there is he's been in with those guys most of the year, and there's a chemistry
Mm-hmm.
element to it. And for instance, you look at that first Henderson run, a lot of that is the spacing of the offensive line. That's in some ways a chemistry play. It doesn't mean Ben Brown can't make the play, because I
Mm-hmm.
actually think Ben Brown's a solid player. As far as a 6th offensive lineman goes, he's a pretty good player for that role.
Yeah.
But Dante Scarnecchia used to talk about you want 5 guys to see it through the same set of eyes, right? You want everybody on the same page. You want everybody to know where everybody else is, what everybody else is doing. And Jared Wilson just has that experience at this point. So I don't think it would have been crazy because Ben Brown was playing well, and you can make the case to stick with the hot hand.
Yeah.
But they want Jared Wilson. His development I think is important, although I still think he should and will kick into center for the long term.
Yeah.
The chemistry thing I think is a big part of the reason why they put him back on the field.
Yeah, and then the one thing I would say to just counter that a little bit is that Vidarian Lowe was out there at left tackle, and Jared Wilson had never played with Vidarian Lowe out there at left tackle. So the one thing about chemistry, but yes, obviously, oh my god, Garrett Bradbury's out there at center, and then the right side is the same. So, yes. And then Austin, what was your second up?
My second up sort of talked about clutch. I think that last drive in the first half, 2-minute drill, being able to drive down and get that field
Oh,
goal. It wasn't necessarily the same pressure as like a game-winning go down, get to the 40 for like a throw your hands up for a field goal. But
yeah.
I think that just shows that Drake May does have that factor, and the offense can come together under in a 2-minute drill and just make things happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That was a good drive. Ramondre Stevenson had the run to get them into field goal range.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. For my second up, I actually had a specific play, and that play was in the red zone. We've been talking about the red zone struggles all year. You guys, on your crossover podcast, I think every single person said that this is what they want to incorporate. This was the Drake May designed run in the red zone. Every single person on the Bills defense had eyes on Travion Henderson as he faked the handoff to him. Not a single person was looking at Drake May. Hunter Henry had a great block that was able to get Drake May. He also broke a tackle, and he was able to run in for an easy touchdown. So that right there, haven't seen that since, I think, the Philly game, right? In the preseason, in his rookie year. So it worked then, and it worked now. So I think the Patriots need to incorporate that more and puts it on film. So now teams have to worry about it. So yeah, that was my second up.
It's a good one. They need it, and now they've shown it. And they don't have to do that every time. But like you said,
Mm-hmm.
all the defenders' eyes are on the running back. Well, now defenders need to know to be aware of that play, even if the Patriots aren't running it. It gives them one more thing to think about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'll start with my first down, and it's Drake May again. Drake May's second half play. I didn't think it was all his fault. Receivers weren't getting open. Sometimes there was pressure. I mentioned that earlier. But 5 for 12, 47 yards in the second half. Only 3 runs also. So, people are talking about, they got conservative. I would argue the opposite. They only ran the ball 3 times. I had a few notes here on the sack. He digs down and started looking for Hollins over the middle, so I think he missed a bunch of wide open guys. And then the bad throw to Hollins, I was a little bit I don't know if he was trying to get the ball away from the defender or what he was doing, because I watched that play about 8 times and I was like, trying to help Drake May out, like trying to rationalize it, but I think it was just a bad throw. And then on the play to Travion Henderson, the play before the last play of the game, he had Booty wide open over the middle of the field. He didn't even look at him, and he just threw the ball to nobody. I mean, that could have been intentional grounding. That's how bad of a throw it was. So I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, no, he got a little flustered. He got a little sped up
Mhm.
there, in the second half. Missed some open receivers, like you said. Had some inaccurate throws. Those sprays came back. That was not a good half. You're not going to win when the quarterback's playing that way, plain and simple.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. The May sprays. Um, Austin, what was your first down?
My first down was uh, the. I feel like it's not necessarily a singular thing, but the play calling was exhausted in the first half. In the Patriots' first drive, I think they said that we saw two new plays from the Patriots. I was in the car for that for the first quarter, so I wasn't able to watch it. But I think it was the double pass and the
Yeah.
and what well I can't think of the other one off the top of my head right
Drake
now.
May run.
But yeah, yes. I don't know. Wow, I forgot that quickly. Um, but I feel like the once the second half came around, I don't know. I feel like the Patriots just got too comfortable and the play calling too relaxed in a sense. Like they weren't conservative, but I feel like it got too. I don't know how to explain it, but relaxed.
Well, it's tough because I've had a lot of people ask me why didn't they throw to Keyshawn Booty more? Why didn't they throw to Diggs more? Why didn't they run more? Why didn't they only ran 18 plays,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
an absurdly low number. So it's hard to get because a lot of what you want to do as a play caller, right? It's sequencing. You're not just going out there like in Madden and all right, I'm going to call this play, I'm going to call this play, I'm going to call this play. Everything, you're trying to set different things up. You're trying to hunt certain matchups, create certain tendencies and then break them. It's really hard to do that in 18 plays, especially as
Yeah.
you feel the game getting away from you and you're trying to chase a deficit. So, the play calling to me in the second half wasn't ideal, but I think it's more than just they were calling bad plays. Like, it was bad
Yeah.
complementary football, and a lot of things are getting away from them and snowballing on them. So,
For sure.
it makes it tough, right, in that spot to execute the plan you want to execute. And now you can say, all right, well, they're going 3 and out every time. They could call better plays. Absolutely. I wish they'd leaned on the run more. I do wonder, though, if there was more things they wanted to set up that they never got a chance to set up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
Just like when would you run the ball though? Because they kind of the one of the runs was obviously the Henderson one. One of them was stopped for like 2 yards, and I don't remember the third one. But I don't know. Like I agree, they definitely should have run the ball more. But like at the same time, so you can't really fault them too much for not being able to run the ball because you're already behind schedule a
Right, no,
little
that's
bit.
exactly it. Well, they weren't behind. They started playing like they were behind before they were behind, I guess is
Hmm.
what I would say. And
Oh yeah,
even as that
definitely.
gap's narrowing, I would have been paying more attention to running the clock and ball control as opposed to, all right, well, they're, up there within 14, they're within 7, they're within 4, like, trying to expand that gap, paying more attention to the clock than the scoring margin.
Hmm. Yeah. And what was your first down?
My first one was Drake May. I was just
Yeah.
following up from you.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay. You want to get into your second down then?
Yeah, the kickoff coverage, and this is another
Yep.
one that the coaching staff talked about during the week. They said, hey, this is a really good return unit from the Bills. They have been really good. They weren't gassing them up, averaging over 30 yards a return the last handful of weeks. And the second big return, I turned to somebody in the press box and said, this is exactly what the Bills did to Tampa. Tampa had momentum early in the game, and the Bills started to chip away long kickoff returns and short fields that allowed their offense to get in a rhythm, and that's exactly what happened. He had a bad penalty on the kickoff return as well, or on the kickoff coverage as well. They had a bad penalty on kickoff return too. But
Hmm.
you go back to
Yeah.
2022, a lot of these Patriots-Bills games have been decided in large part on big special teams plays. 2 kickoff return touchdowns in 22 in the game up in Buffalo after the Mar Hamlin injury. Patriots had a kickoff return touchdown one of those games, executed a fake punt as well earlier this year, the long field goal. There's Bills had a blown fake punt in one of those games. There's just been a lot of key special teams plays. You knew that was going to play a factor, and they just were. And outside of the first one, the Bills didn't really do that much. You knew. The Patriots got out, executed, and that was a major. As poorly as the defense played, as poorly as the offense played, and they did play poorly, the special teams is what opened the door for all that to happen.
Yeah. Ever since that 2022 game, I've always been scared of Ray Davis. Um, I mean, that was embarrassing in 2022. Um, And then Jalen Reagor, the last Patriot to return a touchdown in the old kickoff against the Bills in 2023. But yeah, I guess we can kind of dive into kickoff returns. They allowed 141 yards off 3 returns for Ray Davis. The first one, they kind of went with a I formation look-ish. I had never really seen that because usually you have the guy like
Yeah.
behind everyone else and then you have the guy next to him. That's at least how the Patriots do it. And they went with a different look. And then I said Schooler maybe got blocked in the back. I don't think it really would have affected the play. And then I just said the C parted, and the Buffalo won all their blocks. For number two, 38-yard return on this one. They came out with the same formation. He ran up the same way. It was very similar. I think Caleb Murphy was obviously held by his blocker. I think he would have made the tackle if he wasn't held. So I think that's another penalty. But I mean, I don't know. You can't really. That's a little bit nitpicky. And then Woodson stopped him, and then Schooler had the face mask on that one, which was the play that set up the Bills to kind of eventually make their comeback. And then the third one, honestly, the most obvious holding call I've ever seen in my life. I don't know if you watched the film yet on that play,
Yeah.
but Marte Mapu. It was the third kickoff return, 58 yards. Marte Mapu was getting held up by two Bills defenders, and I think it was how could they not call a penalty on that play? And I think Ellis took a bad route to the player, or to Davis, and he was able to go up the middle. But I don't know. Marte Mapu was getting held on that play, and I think that should have came back.
Yeah, I mean, look, you got to execute. You can't count on the refs
Yeah.
to bail you out in these situations.
Oh yeah.
The I formation thing's interesting. I do. Other teams do it now and then. I think Patriots have done it once this year, maybe twice. The idea being that you can get like a dedicated blocker. I think we're just using offensive lineman there somewhere in that formation set it up. The
Yep.
downside to the I formation is that because if the ball bounces in the landing zone and then goes into the end zone, it's the old school short touchback. Well, now you're asking that guy to cover a lot of ground, and if one of these teams is a dirty kick, can you get it there before the returner can get over? I guess the Bills weren't afraid of that, and these dirty kicks have been tough, and if it goes out of bounds, now they're at the 40, so some teams might not want to risk it. But, yeah, like you said, similar looks. Relatively similar looks on all of them. The Patriots didn't adjust to it. That's how you get beat. That's kind of stuff that'll lose you games.
Yeah. I don't know if you know why or if you saw this, but they kicked away from Brendan Schooler all 3 times, and I'd say Brendan Schooler's your best special teamer. Do you have any idea why they would do that, or just?
They might have identified a weakness in the Bills' return unit on that side and said we're going to play to their weakness versus our strength. That's always a decision you have to make, right? If the strength and weakness don't line up perfectly, which way do you want to go? They may have just determined the Bills were worse going to that side, or they maybe were worried about cutbacks. And because the Bills have had some cutback returns, and they may have looked at it and said, okay, like we trust the guys on the front side to step up and make the play. We need Schooler's athleticism on the backside in case they try to cut this back and break it open around the outside and lose contain. So, it could be any of those things. It could be some combination of them. I don't know exactly. It's a good observation. And again, that's something that maybe, they kick away from him once or twice. But you don't want to kick to the same spot every single time because you don't want to be predictable. You got to mix it up. But yeah, to do it every time in the game, again, they just really didn't make that adjustment.
Yeah, and then last thing on this, just something I noticed watching the game live was, does Andy Borregales have a big enough leg to get it out of the end zone? Because you have 3 returns of 35 plus. I mean, at some point, just take it at the 35 or whatever.
He does.
Yeah.
And there was one where they kicked it into the end zone. I think
Yeah.
their first thought was, let's see if we can get him to run it out and see if we can stop him when he has to go a little further. And I think that was the one that got up.
That was a 58-yarder. Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of their longer returns. Obviously, that didn't work. If they had another kickoff, I wonder if they would have put it out of the end zone. They had one late, which the Bills did sit on for a touchback, then put it out of the end zone. The Bills sat on it for a touchback. He is the leg. Like, I don't doubt he has the leg. I think that was a strategic thing that they weren't going to kick it out of the back of the end zone, and they wanted the Bills to return those kicks, and they were going to try to get him to return it from within the end zone, and obviously that didn't work out.
Yeah, and I only ask because it felt like every single time Andy was trying to kick it a little bit further and a little bit further. So I was wondering if he was trying to get it out of the end zone. But
He can,
yeah,
and you know what? If he
yeah,
couldn't, Behringer can. And
yeah,
I
hmm
think if they really wanted to do that, they would have made that switch.
Hmm.
hmm yeah. One kind of side note on this: I'm not a big Behringer guy. Austin's a big Behringer guy. Are you a big Bryce Behringer fan?
Yeah, he had a couple rough weeks there. He had a couple shanks. I thought he was really good in this game.
Hmm.
He had a
Hmm
couple of great punts. He's had a bit of a habit of out kicking his coverage, but he plays with Brendan
Yep.
Schooler, so he doesn't get burned on it probably as much as he should. I think he's a good punter. Is he not the greatest punter of all time, but he's a solid player. But he has had a rough couple of weeks here.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
personally think the Shanks are just sometimes they come in bad situations, like you said, kicking out his coverage. But you can't argue with his leg talent. I guess I've never said that. I've never heard anyone say that, but his leg talent.
You can say that. I like
Yeah,
that.
the
Amen. Leg talent.
yeah, yeah, the
Afraid to
arm
say
talent
that.
or the leg talent. But yeah, Austin, you want to give us your second down?
Oh wow, I completely forgot about that. My second
Oh,
down, like you guys both noted on Drake May's second half performance. I
hmm
mean, I was debating whether or not to throw it in because I feel like it would have been covered, but I just feel like it was too big to gloss over.
Yep. I think we've pretty much talked about that one.
Yeah,
So yeah.
yeah.
I was gonna have this as my or pass rush as my last down, but since no one talks about it, I'll talk about the run defense. Um, Bad, really bad. You let James Cook run all over you. They allowed 4 rushing touchdowns. I believe that was the stat. 246 yards. And the worst game before this was 177. So this was by far their worst game in terms of that. 9.8 rushing yards per play, and then a plus 111 rushing yards over expected. So it was a really bad game for the run defense, and also for the pass rush. Outside of a few stunts that they ran in the first half, which I don't know why they got away from. Maybe they didn't get away from it. I didn't have the chance to watch everything from the second half on defense over again. But I don't know. The pass rush did not work in the second half,
Yeah.
and the run defense did not work in the second half.
Yeah, we talked about how James Cook was going to have a big week on our last
Hmm
podcast, and I don't think he disappointed, unfortunately. I just think that that's something that you're facing Derrick Henry this week, and I feel like him and James Cook are completely different backs, but I think that it's something that's definitely gonna be highlighted this week in practice for the Patriots.
Yep, and Milton Williams will be back not this week but next week. So, well, he's eligible to return. We don't know if he's going to be back, but I don't. He wasn't in a walking boot. Spillane doesn't sound like he'll probably won't play. I would say doesn't
Yeah,
sound like it.
it's too early to say, whether he will
Yeah.
or won't. But he was in a boot today and he didn't practice.
hmm
That's obviously not a good sign.
Yeah, and Marcus Jones and Carlton Davis both didn't practice. Davis missed part of the game with an injury. I don't
Yeah,
remember what it was.
I'm not as worried about those guys. I wonder if that was just kind of a rest day. Like Harold Landry didn't practice today too, and he's kind of been getting. And Barmore was limited. They've been using these Wednesdays as rest days for some veterans. So,
hmm
those two guys, Davis left during the game. Marcus Jones was, seemed to be in a little more pain after the game as well. So I wonder if he got a little banged up, something. But I'm not as worried. Like those guys, to me, I wouldn't be surprised if we maybe see those guys later this week.
hmm
Whereas Spillane, he's got a boot on his foot.
Yeah,
That's a lot. It seems more serious.
yeah. Sticking with cornerbacks, what do you think about Christian Gonzalez on Sunday?
Yeah, he did not have a great game, and he got bailed
hmm
out. He should have gotten beat twice on that first drive. Brendan Cooks bobbles the ball in the first throw, and Josh Allen sails the second throw. He got beat once later in the game as well by Joshua Palmer. Not his best. You'd like to see him, step up bigger in a big game, but he wasn't terrible. But this was not his best game in a game where you're down a defensive player, Williams. You're looking for a guy like that to step up and make some plays.
hmm And on the first two plays of the game, one time he got picked at the start of the play, which is legal, and then I don't think he really got picked on the Brandon Cooks play, but Josh Palmer definitely altered his route. Um, so I don't know. Obviously, still his fault. Just wanted to throw that in there. Just yeah. But yeah, I kind of talked a lot about the refs, and I just want to. And I know it seems like I've been blaming the refs a little bit, especially on those kickoff returns. But at the end of the day, penalties don't score points, and you have opportunities to stop them you had opportunities to stop them after you had the penalties, even if they were pretty costly. And even if Brandon Cooks, didn't have his hands on the ball on the Marcus
Oh,
Jones.
Khalil Shakir.
It was Khalil Shakir, you're right. Khalil Shakir did not have his hands on the ball during the Marcus Jones interception / his catch / pass interference. At the end of the day, you had a chance to stop him, and you didn't in the red zone because, quite honestly, your red zone defense has been awful this year. So yeah.
Yeah, I just say on the officials, look, my rule of thumb is you get one game across all sports. You get one game each calendar year as a fan to say the refs cost us that game. And it kind of makes you look at it and say, was this egregious enough that I'm going to like use my one game on this, right? And that's just how I've always viewed it.
Mm.
Look, I was more bothered by, to your point, some of the non-calls as opposed to the calls that were made.
Yeah.
Even the Carlton Davis one, like, I've seen that called. Now, it's usually called holding, not pass interference. It was more semantic than anything else, but they really kind of were. I don't really understand why some were PI, some were a hold. I understand why it was a penalty. I don't understand why they called it the one they called it. Even the Carlton Davis one, like, it's ticky-tack for sure, and I'd rather they not call that. I've seen that called. My bigger issue, and Davis talked about this after the game, you've got to get the flag out. Like,
Yeah.
you can't wait 10 seconds to throw the flag, because now it looks like you're showing the player up. Like in baseball, if an umpire does too flashy of a strike three call or waits and the players get pissed, they have every right to get pissed. Like, it's not your job to make it a Hollywood moment. It's your job to make the call and keep the game moving. So my bigger issue with these refs, I think there's you can have a poorly officiated game and you can have an unfairly officiated game. And sometimes those are the same thing, but a poorly officiated game doesn't mean unfairly. You know, the job of the officials, one, be consistent. Ideally, more lenient than not, but just be consistent. If you're calling something one way, call it that way the whole game so like the players and everybody knows what it is. Number two, keep the game moving, which this crew did a horrible job at. You had those long conferences after each call, which annoyed me more than anything. They couldn't figure out the clock at the end of the first half. They finally did. They didn't keep it running. Like, the operational side of it was a mess. And the third thing is don't become part of the story, and they did. There's entirely too much John Hussey in this game, especially for a guy that's a 24th year official in this league. So, did the officiating cost the Patriots the game? No. Was it aggravating? Yes. Did it, to the neutral fan, make that game a less watchable product? Absolutely. And that annoys me more than anything, because the watchability of the product should be the number one concern for the league, because that's where it all comes from. If people don't want to watch the product, everything else falls apart after that. And I'm not saying you're going to have people, en masse exit the sport because the officials are bad, but it's the National Football League. You should be able to, put together a well-officiated game, and that it's not the first time this year, but that was not a well-officiated game. That was not a technically sound officiated game by John Hussey and his crew on Sunday.
Yeah.
Yep. And then the other game I would say that you could potentially, I guess they didn't lose this game, but the Saints game was awfully officiated. That one too. But I just thought of something else. But one, it's kind of related to the officiating. There's some Instagram reels that pop up for me from clips from a radio station down in Buffalo. They pop up throughout the season. This isn't the first time that I've seen them. And I honestly think they do a pretty good job. Definitely homers. They're not your average 98.5 The Sports Hub, Felger and Maz, talking about the problems with the team. They're homers, rose-colored glasses. But anyways, they talked about how Mike Vrabel on WEI said that the quote about the holding calls, how they get the most calls against them, and they didn't have a single one. And some, like, the guy, I don't exactly remember what name he called him, but the host, he called him, I don't even know. I can't think of the name, but it was not a great. What'd you say?
No, is that all right? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He called him something, and so I was like, "This is not very professional." And then they're also talking like, he called him a wussy. There we go. He was like, "How are you gonna blame the game on the refs? This is not professional, an NFL coach." And I was like, "That's not really what the quote was about. He's just saying something." So I don't know. I had a problem with those people.
Well, look, I mean, there were a lot of Bills fans after Week 5 that were furious about the officials, and now they're clutching their pearls over Patriots fans asking about the officials. So, we just need some consistency, just like from the officials. We just want some consistency from Buffalo, and we're not not getting that right now, but I don't have a problem with what Vrabel said.
Yeah.
The Bills were called for a hold, so there was an element of like what he said was incorrect. But
Hmm.
I mean, we see coaches in all sports do this all the time. Like how often, in basketball or hockey during a playoff series, does a coach come out after a bad game, say something about, well, the officials weren't calling this or they were calling too much of this, and they eat the fine because they know then the league will look at it and pay attention to it down the road. That's how they communicate. And Vrabel's asked a question. He answered it honestly, and he did say too, officiating didn't cost us the game. Again,
Hmm.
you can talk about the officials and not say the officials cost us the game, which is what I
Yeah.
think Vrabel did. So,
Hmm.
if the people in Buffalo want to talk, they can talk. They certainly did plenty of talking about the officials after Week 5. So
Yeah.
let's get that squared. But, you know, yeah, you don't want to hear after your team won a game that it was because of the refs. Obviously, you want to believe your team's the best and be a fan.
Yeah.
I didn't really have any problem with anything Vrabel said about the refs after the
Hmm.
game or this week. Like, I thought outside of the one that the Bills were called for a hold, didn't feel like it because the Patriots blew a contain in the pass rush and allowed a touchdown on the next play. But
Yeah.
outside of that, just being factually incorrect, I didn't really have any issue with what he said about the refs this week.
Hmm. Yeah. 100%. And then the other thing, real quick, that was funny about that is that he kind of was like, McDermott, he would never do that. He's so perfect. I mean, he didn't say that, but it was just like,
Oh, I
yeah,
mean,
all
well,
right,
no, Sean
you're.
McDermott's never said anything wrong.
Yeah.
Ever.
Oh,
He's,
Sean McDermott has
it's
never
no
said
question
anything
in
wrong.
Buffalo in
Yeah.
his history. So.
My goodness, Sean McDermott might have some of the wildest press conferences. I do a post every week where it's like Bill like the team's week, and then I find like funny things, and that was one of those quotes was incorporated. He's like, I wanted to make a plane crashing analogy, and I was like, all right, Sean, you would never say anything wrong though, according to
No,
the Bills
never.
radio host. All right, I have a question for you about the draft. So you're a big college football guy. I have
Yep.
decided on the 10-game winning streak, I'm not going to look at anything. I'm not going to look at mock drafts now that the 10-game win streak is over. I looked at some mock drafts. So what guys stand out? What guys do you think the Patriots should take, or who do you want the Patriots to take?
So yeah, first of all, it's kind of nice that don't get me wrong, I love talking about the draft, but we haven't had to do
Mhm.
this in season this year, and
Yeah.
the team's giving you a lot more to watch. This will be an important draft. I actually have a piece dropping tomorrow on 98.sportshub.com on players to watch in the college football playoff, and
Mhm.
I'm putting the list together. And again, so this isn't all the players in college football; it's just the teams in the playoff. But obviously, it's a lot of good teams, a lot of good players. And I kind of individually went through and studied each team and okay, who do I want? Which guy do I want? And then I go back through and I look at it and I'm like, wow, this is like all edge rushers and linebackers.
Yeah.
Like I gotta vary this up. I gotta change it. And I'm like, all right, well this was late last week. And I'm like, all right, well, this is a problem for next week. I'll go back and look at it. And then the Bills game happens, and I'm like, you know what? I actually need more edge rushers and
Yeah.
linebackers on this list. So, that's where a lot of my attention is. Now, the good news
Mhm.
is this edge class is awesome. This edge class rules. There are going to be, top 15 talents that I think you can get end of the first round, early the second, simply because you're not going to have, 8 teams take edge guys in the top 20. That's just not going to happen. So,
Mhm.
some of it, it's not as easy as last year. We could point and be like, all right, well, they'll basically have their pick of everybody. Will Campbell's the guy. There's a little more, okay, where are they picking, right? One and done, even the difference between one and done in the playoffs versus winning one playoff game could be a massive difference.
Yep.
That's 7-8 spots in the draft order. So, that being said, some of these guys maybe aren't in the range, but David Bailey and Romello Height from Texas Tech, Cassius Howell from Texas A&M, who's gotten some comps to Harold Landry, R. Mason Thomas from Oklahoma, Joshua Josephs from Tennessee, Mateo Uyunglele from Oregon. Those are the guys I like on the edge. And then a linebacker, I haven't gotten as deep into this class, so I don't know if it truly is the depth that the edge class does, but Sonny Styles, C.J. Allen, Deontay Lawson, these are all kind of similar, athletic, off-ball, passing down linebackers, which is the kind of guy they're really missing right now, especially Sonny Styles, who recruited as a safety, 5-star safety, can do it at a high level. So, looking there, safety might be a need. I think tight end's going to be a need. It's a decent tight end class. I like the 2 kids from Georgia. There is like day 3 project players for Henry. Step in maybe when Hunter Henry gets a little bit older. Wide receiver, if they can get a guy at the top of the depth chart, I'm in. Like if Carnell Tate is somehow in play, I would consider that. I don't need another day 2 pick. That's just kind of in the middle of things. Like they have Kyle Williams for that.
Hmm.
They need either top of the depth chart or really they probably don't need to touch it unless they're really worried about re-signing um, Kayshon Boutte and Pop Douglas, I guess, then maybe you want to get ahead of it. But so those, right tackle is going to be in need, even if Morgan Moses comes back. He had a project player there. Guard, they probably need a starting guard, assuming they're going to move Jared Wilson back into center. So there's a number of positions you're looking at. Like, this is still a roster in progress. Running back would be another one. But for me, when I look at the top of the draft, it's edge, it's linebacker. Those are the big two. If I had to put a third on it, I'm not taking a guard in the first round.
Yeah.
If you told me they were going to take a guard in the top 100, even in the second round, because they're going to be picking down in
Hmm.
the 60s. If you told me they were going to take an edge rusher first and then take, one of the best guards in the draft to be the starting left guard, as things stand right now, it's a spot you can fill in free agency, but I'd be okay with that. So
Hmm.
I think those are the positions you're really looking at.
Yeah.
Yeah. If they had just, not saying that I'm happy that they're winning, but imagine a Patriots 4 year in a row. You get Christian Gonzalez,
Yeah.
you get Drake May, you get Will Campbell, and then you get Arvell Reese. And I'm an Ohio State fan, so that defense led by Matty P. They have so much NFL talent. You mentioned Sonny Styles. My eyes lit up when you mentioned
Sonny
Sonny Styles. I
Styles,
would love him.
who's the other? Kenyatta Jackson could be a fit for them.
Is that that's the defensive tackle?
The edge rusher, yeah. I think
The
he
edge
plays on
rusher.
the side. I really like Caleb Downs. Caleb Downs might be my favorite player in the draft. I don't think he's going to be on board for them. But if you want to play
Oh
that
yeah,
game,
definitely.
how lucky can the Patriots get? So this just came out today.
Hmm.
Ruben Bain, who plays on the edge for Miami, tremendously talented football player. Tremendously talented. I don't think he's been viewed as the consensus number one in this draft, but has been in the number one conversation, has been viewed as the consensus top 5 pick externally for most of the season. He's had a great season in Miami. Dane Brugler, the draft insider for The Athletic, he gets more
Yep.
info than anybody. He's excellent at this. He shares today that because of Ruben Bain's measurements, some teams are unsure of
Ooh.
where he's going to end up and what his role will be in the NFL. Mainly due to his size, 6'2", 277, 30 3/4 inch arms. And he says plenty of day 2 grades from NFL scouts. So, I just don't see how the NFL lets him get to day 2. I don't see how the NFL lets him out of the top 10. He's so talented. But, if we're going to look at this and keep going, and maybe he doesn't have a good combine or whatever, let's say the Patriots go 1 and done in the playoffs, and they're picking 18, 19, right? Ruben Bain's falling. He's tremendously talented. He's a stylistic fit for the defense. He plays the biggest position in D. Are we going to do Will Campbell 2.0? Which is a whole other year about measurements and arm length and this versus talent and this and that. And, if you want to really get nuts this early on about, how could the Patriots hit on a blue chip talent picking where they're picking, I'll believe it when I see it that Ruben Bain gets out of the top 5. I'll believe it when I see it. I'm not ruling it out, but, he's such a good football player, and what you do on the field has to be, to me, the most important factor. But, man, if he starts to slip, it's going to be a really, really, really interesting conversation.
Yeah, and you have some evidence that they are willing to take guys,
Right.
Will Campbell, that don't have the preferred NFL measurements. So, I don't know. Now you got me excited. But, don't want to be first-round exits, obviously. But if you are, there's something to look forward to, I guess.
Yeah, look, it's going to be however far they go, it's going to be a fun offseason. This team's still doing a lot of building.
Yeah.
And, now that there is, I do think, in a sense, the draft is kind of more fun when they're not picking at the top. You're evaluating better players at the top, and that's always cool. But, the last 2 years, it was, all right, well, they're picking third. Okay, well, it's going to be Caleb. It's going to be Jaden Daniels. All right, take Drake May, right? There's not that much. And we were debating Drake May, J.J. McCarthy, but, it wasn't – you're just kind of debating the player for a spot. Same with last year, Will Campbell versus Ted McMillan. Now you have to really learn the whole board because, well, okay, Sonny Styles would be great. But does Sonny Styles get to where the Patriots are? Right?
Definitely not.
Maybe get within range of the Patriots, maybe even trade up to, who's going to fall, this or that, who's ahead of them that has needs. You look at more trades, there's so many more discussions you can have. It gets a little repetitive when you're picking the top 5 because you just kind of know there's only 3 or 4 names realistically talking about. Now, there's going to be different name every week that people are hot on, and it is a little more fun covering them when they're in this part of the draft. The most fun is when they're picking 32nd, and hopefully we get there
Yeah.
soon. But this will see.
Hopefully, yeah. Yeah. So real quick before I think Austin, you have a question. Real quick for that. I last year I was like, get me to day 2. The Patriots, I need them to take Kyle Williams. I was the biggest Kyle Williams believer. I watched his highlights and I said, throw this guy a screen like he did 8 times in college and broke it for a touchdown. And I mean, we got the most explosive player in the league. I did a mock draft. My final mock draft, I had Kyle Williams as the 2nd-round pick and Travion Henderson as the 3rd-round pick.
Nice.
Like I flip flopped them. I just thought Kyle Williams wouldn't make it to the 3rd round, and I was so happy when Kansas City passed up on him because they obviously needed a receiver. And I mean, I talked about how I didn't think my expectations, like this was training camp now. I was like, I think Kyle Williams is going to be more of a gadget player for you. Don't be surprised when he doesn't have a lot of catches. So I think Kyle Williams, as long as I keep talking about him, I'll never have a bad take. So, yeah.
No, it's fun. The first time I hit on a mock draft was I was doing it for my high school newspaper. What year was it? I should remember this. Oh, it was Chandler Jones. I hit on Chandler Jones
2012.
from the school paper, and I riding high off that for a long time. Like it's a
Yeah.
good feeling, right? And every year it's a good feeling when you hit on one or two of those. It's cool. But no, he was. I really liked Kyle Williams too. It was funny. I'm going through, when I was getting ready for the Senior Bowl, I admittedly didn't watch a ton of Washington State last year. I think I caught like one of their games live. And I'm going through for the Senior Bowl. I'm looking at the players on the list. I'm trying to familiarize myself with some of the guys that I'm not as familiar with. And so I'm watching Kyle Williams. And I was blown away. And I had texted some people. And so I look, there's like a website that tracks where players are in the consensus among all the media and things like that. And he was like 800 something. And so I texted some people, and I'm like, hey, am I missing something? Like, is there an off-the-field issue here? Is he not declaring? Like, why is he? And they're like, no, he's a good player. I guess people aren't caught up. And then it got to the point where, or people were like, yeah, I haven't really seen him. I don't know that much about him. And then it gets to the Senior Bowl, and I'm not there, so I didn't cover it on TV. And every time he's about to go up in a rep, they cut to commercial, or they cut away and they didn't show it. So I'm sitting here like, is this guy real? Am I having a dream? Is somebody pulling a prank on me that I'm seeing this guy on the internet and nobody else knows he exists? And then obviously he turned out to very much exist and be a fun player. So I really like Kyle Williams too. I'm with you. I did not expect a big role for him this year. I think there's room for that to grow in time. I actually think stylistically he's kind of similar to Stephon Diggs, or a young Stephon Diggs. And I think as Diggs ages out, that's maybe a role that he steps more into and grows into, and I think he'll be very good in that role. But yeah, patience, you'd like to see the guy break out right away. I think patience is key. He'll get more reps, hopefully, with Drake May next year in the summer, which will make a big difference. And then you go from there. But I still like the pick. I still think he has a chance to be a good player. He's just kind of blocked right now on the depth chart, which is crazy to say for the Patriots, a wide receiver. That's where they are.
Yeah. Austin, you want to?
Yeah, so my question is just, it's a lot different from this. It's more of like a stylistic question. How do you think that you working at 98.5 has like shaped you in terms of like coming from your other jobs? How's it like changed you and how has it helped you grow as in this job?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. It's helped me grow a lot. Look, I remember, because I was at CLNS with Evan Lazar for my first 2 years, and that's when I kind of started to get a following. And this was, our first year was the year that, our first 2 years was kind of the end of Brady. And a lot of the talk around the team was, is Tom Brady going to leave? Is he not going to leave? What's going to happen? Is he going to retire? Is he going to request a trade? Is he going to leave in free agency? And me and Evan, being, the bright-eyed, deer in headlights kids that we were, we were kind of, and there was a lot of talk in general about the teams falling apart. It's the end of the dynasty. It's the end of Bill. We were relatively positive about things. And we both thought Brady was going to stay, which we were wrong. Or I shouldn't say we both thought Brady was going to stay. We were both annoyed by how much talk there was about Brady leaving.
Yeah.
And we were annoyed about how much talk there was of the big picture and this thing's falling apart as they won a Super Bowl and then started whatever it was, 8-0, 9-0 the next year. And obviously they fell apart after that. But so we kind of got this reputation of being some more, I'd like to think level-headed. I think other people maybe just saw it as positive people on the beat. So it's funny when I announced I was going to 98.5, a lot of people are like, don't become like don't do the 98.5 negative thing, like don't follow the dark side and things like that. And I've tried not to. I just think seeing more football, I don't want to say become more jaded. I think I can see the nuance of it a little more clearly, and I don't think it's maybe more positive or negative. I think I just see things in different ways. But having a chance to be on the air with those guys and debate those guys. By the way, not people there aren't as negative as everybody thinks they are on the outside. It's a little bit of reputation, but there are some negative takes.
Hmm.
Debating that, I've grown a ton because you've got to be able to form the argument. You can't just stomp your feet and be like, "No, the Patriots are good," right? Um, you've got to be able to defend the take. Like last year, Drake May wins one game, turn the ball over a ton, and so a lot of people are like, "How do we know he's the guy?" And nobody was saying they should go back and draft another quarterback, but it was like, "How are you so sure Drake May? How are you so confident about Drake May?" And like, I couldn't just sit there and be like, "Nah, he's good," because that's not good radio. Like I had to be able to defend it. So you study more, you learn more, you research more, and so I think it's made me much better at debate and argument. And there's also times where I feel pretty positive about something. Somebody brings something up that maybe dampers it, and I'm like, "That's a good point. I didn't consider it that way." So I think it's made me a lot better on the debate side of things, of formatting my own arguments, being more creative with my own arguments, and preparing and looking at other arguments I maybe wouldn't have otherwise considered. So I would say that's the biggest thing, is that it's, you're going up against the pros. These guys are great at what they do for, the ratings are what they are for a reason. These guys are great at what they do, and you can't go in there and just kind of expect to throw down basic information and have a real discussion with them. You got to come prepared. And so there's a real test for that, and something I still think I'm getting better at. I think I've gotten a lot better at it, but something I'm still getting better at and continue to get better at. But I would say that's the biggest impact, and then the platform too. Like being on the station that's the team affiliate has given me a lot of unique opportunities. Getting to cover the Shrine Bowl in 2023. The podcast with David Andrews.
Yep.
Getting to be involved in the network broadcast a little bit pre and post game has been a really awesome opportunity. A big part of the reason I got into this was listening to Gil Santos. I don't know if you guys know who that is. He was a play-by-play guy before Bob Sosi. So to get to work on the network broadcast for the Patriots has been something that has been an unbelievably cool experience, and every time I get to do it is just something like special. So.
Hmm. Yeah, I love Gil Santos. One time I met Logan Mankins and
Yeah.
Gil Santos' son in the same day,
There you
and
go.
I was more excited about meeting Gil Santos' son, who worked at the Hall of Fame, by the way.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's there sometimes if you ever want to meet him. But yeah, I think you've been on the radio with Felger and Maz, and I think that just it would be so amazing because sometimes I listen to because I'm in school during most of well I guess not but I have homework and whatever during their radio, but sometimes I go back and I listen to on the podcast app, and it's just like I really want to debate them, and you actually have the chance to debate them. So that's got to be one of the best feelings in the world if you just hear somebody be like debate Felger.
It's cool. The first time I went in there, he kicked my ass. And I,
Yeah.
I was not ready for it. You think you know what you're going to say, and you get in there and you have it all in your head. And, he put me in my place. And I think he was probably a little annoyed I didn't fight back more. Because at the end of the day, he doesn't care about winning the argument as much as he cares about it being good radio.
Hmm.
And so he kind of kicked my ass. And I think I wasn't necessarily ready for what was coming. And, next time I went in, I fought back a little more and fought back a little more. And now I like going back and forth with him. Because, again, it's good. It's challenging. Sometimes I walk out of the studio, I'm tired. It's exhausting.
Yeah.
Because you got to be on your toes the whole time. But
Mhm.
it is a really cool. Somebody who grew up listening to them. Like my first job, whatever you want to call it, internship in college was working on their show, albeit on the TV side. So I didn't really get to interact with them, but it's and the other shows too. Like Solak and Bertrand, I listened to a lot growing up. Joe Murray, who I've gotten to know, but even going back to Adam Jones, the morning show as well. My first job out of college, I 2-hour commute, 2.5-hour commute. I'd listen to most of the morning show every day, 5 days a week. So, just getting to be in with those guys as somebody who's been listening for 10 plus years it's never not cool.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that'll about do it. Thank you, Alex, for coming on the show. I had a blast. I think Austin also had a blast. And so yeah, hopefully you can come on sometime again. This was fun. And yeah.
Absolutely. turn, I guess.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I gotta ask you one question off
Still
air.
recording.
Oh, still recording?
Yeah, I was gonna say it's still recording. You might want to wait.
Is it? Wait, I pressed stop. Uh-oh.